as well. I screwed you over. Great, perfect. Hi, y'all. Thank you so much for attending this session. I just want to give a quick intro to our wonderful guests and panelists who have agreed to speak with us. This is the How Can Yale Help session. So essentially, we wanted to create this panel since we have grassroots organizations from across the United States and the globe, and you're coming to our university, we wanted to tell y'all what resources we have to offer and how you can use the resources we have to the most extent possible. So we have a wide selection and smorgasbord from across the university, and I don't want to take up too much of their speaking time, so I'm just going to pass it off to them to introduce themselves. They're going to talk about what each of their organizations does on campus, and then we'll pass it back to y'all for questions, what you guys are thinking would be a better way to utilize these resources, and just have a more of an informal conversation for the rest of the time. How does that sound? I know it's been a long day. After this, we're going to have sounds and visions of joy, a reception, wine, beer, snacks, food. So this is a nice little pregame to that. Okay, all right, sounds good. I'll let Kevin kick it off then.
So, hi everybody. So my name is Kevin Doyle. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Career and Professional Development here at the Yale School of the Environment. And so I'm here to talk to you about jobs and internships, including how employers in the grassroots community can engage with us so that our students can come to work for you, can do internships with you, and how we can help provide the support services, including, in many cases, some money to help make that happen. So I'm also here to speak on behalf of what's called CSE, which is Career Services at Yale. So there are career service offices just like mine at the School of Management, at the School of Law, at the School of Public Health, at the Jackson School, the School of Engineering, and all of those career offices have similar services to the one that I'm about to describe very briefly. They've told us that we have 4 minutes each, which my wife laughed and laughed because it takes me 4 minutes just to introduce myself. So I'm going to try to be very, very brief. So here's the way it works. Our office has a website which you can access just by going to School of the Environment, write in the word careers, and it'll take you right to our website. All of the information that I'm about to summarize very, very, very briefly can be accessed there. Or you can reach out to me directly. All of the Yale emails are all the same, first name dot last name at yale.edu. So I'm kevin.doyle@yale.edu. So if any of you are looking for summer interns, between now and maybe the end of February is the best time for you to reach out to us. When you reach out, we will ask you to submit a project description, 1 page. Just make it very, very simple. What is it that you are looking for? What kind of person do you need? If it's a project, describing the project. And we will then advertise that to students. And if one of the students is interested in that project, they will connect with you directly to talk about who they are, what they want to do, and their summer experience needs and desires. And if the two of you make a match, we'll then ask you, do you have any financial resources to lend? If the answer is yes, yay. If the answer is probably not so much, that student can come to us and try to get financial support for the summer experiences. So in general, when they apply for our money, the Yale money, they usually can expect to get something in the neighborhood of about $6,000 to $7,000. So if that's something that's of interest to you, I'll repeat my name, kevin.doyle@yale.edu, and please reach out to me. If any of you have actual jobs for our graduating people, graduating in May, we have 150 graduate students who are going to be graduating from the Yale School of the Environment in May, and they're all going to be looking for jobs. Based on what happened on Tuesday, I know for a fact that many of them are already coming to my office stating a desire to not necessarily work in the more corporate and institutional part of the environmental workforce, but to go to work for activist groups, to go to work for philanthropists, to go to work for grassroots organizing, and to go to work especially at the intersection of climate change, water, ecosystems, and justice. So whether that's urban, whether that's some other type of community, keep in mind that 40% of our graduate students are international students, and this is a global school. So if any of you are coming from Latin America or Southeast Asia, Africa, and other parts of the world, we want to hear from you as well. So please be in touch. Our students want to do this work. We want to work with you and for you, and we're here to help. Thanks.
And you employing a Yale student, either as a summer worker or long-term, has really been great for me. They're rock stars, which is not so surprising. My name is Joshua Lowe. I'm the Partnerships Director for the Yale Program on Climate Change Communication. We oftentimes call ourselves YPCCC. We study how people think, feel, and act on climate change through scientific research and through partnerships. But before I dive into that, I did want to just tell you a little bit about who I am and why I'm here. So I got my start in environmental work when I was a student in college, and I moved into a college in Memphis, Tennessee. And the northern border of the neighborhood that college was in was a creek called Cypress Creek. And a company called Vesicle had been dumping heptachlorine chlordane in there for decades. And over the next 4 years, we tried to get the state to clean it up. We tried to get the company to clean it up. And what was really clear to me was that we didn't have enough political power to make them do what the community needed. And that is what has really been driving the next 20 years of community organizing and work that I've been doing, where I've worked to build local leaders, campaigns, and really won meaningful differences in people's lives. And I've also really been curious about how do we do that better, and that's what led me to YPCCC, was how do we figure out how do we engage people, how do we build strong teams, how do we communicate at scale, and those are a lot of the questions that we're helping partners solve every day. Since this is the introduction section, I'm going to pass it to my colleague, but we'll talk more about exactly how YPCCC can help you do that in a second.
Great. Okay, I think we're still in introduction. So I'm Stephanie Safdie. I'm a visiting professor in the law school where I teach an environmental justice law and advocacy clinic, kind of a startup clinic. We just started this year, but we're going strong and we're building bigger. So, but I am here to talk about the role that law schools can play and students can play during their legal education and providing support, particularly for environmental justice groups, community groups. We work with community groups, tribal nations, sometimes government when they're trying to do really good things, really need our help, but our heart and soul is with community-based organizations and tribes. I'll pass it on pretty quickly, but just maybe just a quick introduction before we get into that to kind of like what the clinical legal programming is, because it's sort of a wonky thing, but we're like the kind of progressive revolutionary arm of the legal education movement. So in the 1960s, 70s, law students started to kind of take note that other programming, other institutional education programming, like medical schools, had a service component built into it, an experiential education program built into it, and law schools weren't really doing that at that point. And law students wanted to use their education to be serving community. And really kind of out there lending resources, not just weeding for it, but doing it through their institutions. And I kind of stand now in this lineage that those students created. So from that point, schools like Yale have really invested in building out these pro bono legal services arms as part of the legal education program itself. So I have groups of students who come in, they operate under my attorney license, so they're able to provide attorney services for clients. All of our work is pro bono. And we try to be really creative and generative, working with groups that might not ordinarily be able to access counsel, and doing it in ways where we can really engage in thinking about what should law do and how can law serve communities. So doing it in really partnered ways, thinking creatively about the tools that we use, taking a kind of community empowerment approach to the work that we do, using litigation when we need to, but not just litigation, trying to kind of do really good novel things for our clients and following the leads of our clients. And I'm happy to talk a little bit about after I pass it off to some of the projects that we're doing, so you can get more of a sense of what that looks like in action.
Thank you. Okay, so I am Jennifer Wong. I'm the executive director of the Yale Center on Climate Change and Health. We are across campus based at the School of Public Health, but we are actually a university-wide center that's really trying to put health at the heart of climate action. And I think for those of you who might come from more of like an environment or environmental justice background, which I also do, oftentimes there's, like for instance, the mission of the EPA is to protect human health and the environment. Like that's it. And a lot of work, and even if you look at the 1991 National People of Color meeting around environmental justice and those 17 foundational environmental justice principles, protecting worker health and safe environment, access to healthcare, that's all tied in with environmental justice very tightly. And yet, I think for a long time, health hasn't really been part of that dialogue, right? For decades in those initial stages of the EJ movement, there wasn't really that strong health connection to either health professionals or to the health messages that need to get out there. So within the public health kind of psyche, I think that environmental protection and environmental and social determinants of health are really central to that public health mindset, beyond maybe something you might have in mind like pandemic preparedness and response or vaccines, but it's very much looking at beyond the individual, individual genes and behaviors, but really looking at the things in your community, in your society, in systems and institutions that affect how your health turns out and the well-being of yourself and your future generations. And when it comes to, our center focuses on climate change, and we know that climate change is already affecting our health through extreme weather, through air pollution, this wildfire smoke, through sea level rise and flooding. And all of that is compounding in environmental justice communities. It's compounding other risk factors, chemical exposures, proximity to highways, and other social and environmental determinants of health that is adding to this cumulative impacts on EJ communities. And so we also know that climate action, beyond reducing greenhouse gas emissions, can often yield immediate health benefits, whether it's through electrification of stoves and heating, or through reduction of tailpipe emissions and what the benefits for that in terms of reduction of childhood asthma. So there's so many interconnections. Our center focuses on research, education, and policy and practice, and really linking all of those things together. So with that intro, I will throw it back to you all and talk about some solutions in a little bit.
You had more than you want to add?
I have nothing additional to add other than a willingness to answer any questions.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you a little bit about how the Yale program on climate change communication can help. So a little bit about who we are. We're a research center at the Yale School of Environment. We say how people think, feel, and act. We do that through surveys, such as our flagship Climate Change in the American Mind survey, which is a twice yearly nationally representative survey. And we do that through message experiments, and we do that through partnerships. And one of the things that basically we offer is we do a partnerships program where we help organizations and grow their capacity for strategic climate communications and transformational organizing. We do that through one-on-one consultations. We do that through training. We do that through messaging advice. And there's a wide range of things that we've done with environmental justice organizations, from helping them understand what is the political environment, what is the opportunity to organize in their community, to go, what is the breakdown of the 6 Americas, which is our segmentation framework, how many alarmed people are there in their local community, to helping them use voter file models to reach out to people, because we can actually identify who is likely to care about climate change down to the voter level. And by doing that, and engaging people, they're more likely to vote, they're more likely to take action. And so there's a wide range of ways that we've done that. I also wanted to highlight some of the research that we have done. So we worked with a number of climate justice and environmental justice advocates over the last 3 years to hear from them about the work that and the research that they wanted us to do. So we held a number of listening sessions with them, heard from them, what are the questions that you want us to ask in our surveys and in our message experiments. And then we developed with them a set of questions that went on our climate change in the American Mind survey. And a few things that we found. One, people are generally supportive of the goals of climate justice. But many people don't know what climate justice is. They just don't have that concept. And so there's this opportunity to educate and engage and move people to action if we do that work. But it's important to remember that we actually we can't just assume that people are on board because we say climate justice. We need to actually do that work. And the partnerships program is here to help you do that work, to help you to close that gap, to figure out how to get more people to take action, how to get people to say the right messages, that sort of thing. And that's really what we're here for. We work with over 200 organizations every year, ranging from very grassroots organizations to the United Nations, helping them figure out their messaging, helping them figure out who their audiences are. And we're really happy and excited to do more of that with the climate justice and environmental justice movement. And really looking forward to hearing how we can be helpful to your group. Yeah.
Thanks. Well, so following on an organization, a center that has 200 client groups, I'm going to scale it way down and talk about our program. So we're one law clinic. It's me and a couple of faculty co-conspirators, and then our valiant army of 8 law students who are representing a number of different groups of clients. We are always expanding our docket, and we've got new students coming in all the time. So, we are, as we develop our program, trying to think about communities that we should be serving, ways that we can be most helpful, particularly in our local community here and in this region. But I'll tell you a little bit about some of the projects that we have going right now, or the partnerships, so you can get a sense of the work that we do. And I would also just give a shout out more broadly also to these clinical pro bono programs, because they're around, they're all over the place. Most law schools have some version of an environmental clinic or an environmental justice clinic. And so we often work quite collaboratively with each other. And it is part of a kind of movement to make sure that we're extending pro bono legal support to community groups that need it, and trying to do it in a really thoughtful, generative way. So a couple of the things that we do, just to give you a sense of how this works. So one of our partnerships right now, we're working with 2 community-based organizations in Fresno, California. These are groups that are based in part of Fresno called South Fresno, which is subject to a whole history of redlining, racially exclusionary zoning ordinances, racial covenants, land use planning, general plans, and specific plans that concentrated for generations, industrial development and traffic in a lower income community of color at the southern part of the city of Fresno. There's a highway that was built through there in the 1950s, 60s as part of the development of the Interstate Highway Program, a story that's replicated across so much of the country. You'll see it in New Haven. Displaced 20 blocks of housing, created a physical barrier that just cut right through Fresno. And the communities that are on the southern side of it have been fighting ever since to make sure that they have wealth, that they have community-serving resources, that they have investment that's being brought into the community in a way that serves them. And they've been filling a lot of gaps that are the result of sustained institutional divestment there and increasing concentration of industrial development that's brought a lot of ire over the years. So we are fighting a new effort to expand this highway. After all this history, there's an effort to build out this highway, adding 2 lanes, new interchanges as part of a coordinated program to build out 3,000 new acres of industrial development in this community. And our clients are fighting across a whole lot of fronts, but they brought us in because they had gone as far as they could through the administrative processes, through advocacy to try to fight this highway expansion project, and they needed to file a lawsuit and couldn't find counsel for it. So we're partnering with some local groups there, a group called Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability does some really great work in California, and we've got 2 lawsuits going on right now, one in state court, one in federal court. We won on one of them, and it's back before the Federal Highway Administration. We're fighting strong in their connect. We're trying to work with them to connect it to the other things that they have going on in that area because it's part of a broader picture of injustices that they're fighting in that community, making sure that this remains a healthy, thriving community for families, and it's part of a long lineage. So that's one of our matters. In another instance, we're working with a coalition of tribal nations and community-based organizations that are trying to restore in-stream flows in an area that's been really depleted over the years. And the consequence of that is that there's been vast loss of native fish species, increasing proliferation of harmful algal blooms, connections between poor water quality and air quality that's made it really hard for the environmental justice communities that we work with to access water and to relate to these landscapes and draw it as a source of health and sustenance, and for our tribal clients to exercise culture and spirituality and access subsistence fishing resources. And so we are working with this group to try to upset the water rights system and do what we can to make sure that they are included in the decision-making processes. We're representing them in a formal adjudication process to challenge a new water rights project that would draw more water out of this area, trying to work on restoring in-stream flows. We've got civil rights complaints that we're working on. It's tough work. We're buoyed by our clients all the time. We follow their lead, and lucky to have this army of really dedicated law students who are trying to do what they can to be good allies. So that's a snapshot of the sort of work that we do. We're also building out some local partnerships here, and would just be thrilled to talk to anyone who's interested in learning more about the kind of services that this community can offer.
So at the Yale Center on Climate Change and Health, I feel like we do a little bit of like some of the other things that the other panelists have talked about. So in terms of our educational programming, a lot of that is a way that we can sort of both help with our MPH and MEM student education while connecting in a clinic fashion. So we actually have a clinic in climate justice and public health. I see one of our students there, that's Bryn, working on our project with street vendors in New York City and looking at the potential health benefits of electrification of fossil fuel generators. So we have the clinic running every fall, and we partner with community organizations. We had a partnership a couple of years ago, with We Act, and a lot of them are in the Northeast region or Connecticut. We work with like Operation Fuel around energy access. We worked with the Connecticut Tenants Union, again, around like energy costs and access. So we have a number of opportunities that I think student teams can help with sort of, basic like research, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, GIS mapping, air pollution monitoring. There's a number of things that we can do through the clinic in a relatively short amount of time to get some preliminary data or to pilot a process to assist groups that might need that assistance. Or we could be doing things like one of our student team is also developing a communications and action toolkit for local health departments on communicating and responding to extreme heat events and air pollution, which in the Northeast, especially on the wildfire smoke, like health departments, a lot of municipalities are not prepared. And really doing some community engagement to incorporate environmental justice and vulnerable communities as part of that toolkit and outreach. We do also have student internships through our Center on Climate Change and Health. So this is actually now the time to propose intern projects for 2025 because at the School of Public Health, if your organization doesn't have the funding for the internship, the students do apply for very modest amount of money through the School of Public Health. So we do have that option. In terms of larger research projects, I think there's always opportunity to collaborate with our faculty on a range of issues. We have faculty who work on like air pollution, water pollution, like chemicals, air, extreme heat, and a number of issues that my email address is jen.wang@yale.edu. Don't put Jennifer because that's actually a different person at Yale, and I get her emails all the time. So beyond that, I think it's sort of like the work that you're doing with the pro bono legal representation is something I'm kind of curious. Like, would it ever help to have a health professional kind of give testimony or to provide an amicus brief? Or
Yes.
Okay. So that I was hoping to hear that, and we sense that, and I wish it's something that I personally like through our center is tiny. But we don't really have the capacity to do that. We could work with student teams, but we want something like we probably need a lot more capacity to do that. Thankfully, I've been in this climate and health kind of field for about 10 years, and I've seen it really grow to the point where last year at the COP28, there was a declaration on climate change and health that has now been signed by 151 parties. 49 ministers of health showed up to the COP, and there was the first ever health day. So that's at the international level. In different countries and states, there are health professional networks looking to participate in climate action. So in Connecticut, we have Connecticut Health Professionals for Climate Action. These are doctors and health professionals and nurses who will go and submit and give testimony, verbal or written, go to lobby days. I know a group called Global Climate and Health Alliance that worked with the Inter-American Court of Human Rights around an amicus brief that's around clean and safe health and safety in the climate emergency. So there's a number of ways that there's like the health sector is getting organized and realizing that they have a role to play if they are to, honor the Hippocratic oath of first do no harm. And part of doing no harm is like once you know that there is health harms, it's incumbent upon health professionals to protect people from that harm. And it is actionable. I think the other thing that I've seen happen in some of my prior work internationally with environmental justice groups that are, fighting the expansion of coal, is engage with the health community and reach out because they need to see so our partners in, say India or the Philippines were taking doctors on toxic tours to the coal ash ponds that's next to the fishing village, or speaking with the kids who are not able to play outside because the extreme level of pollution that they're facing. So their eyes need to be open, and that dialogue does need to be two-way. And I think there's enough health professionals out there that are aware of these connections that would be willing to take on those trips and those dialogues and assist in any way they can. I can't say I know all of them, but I feel like we're part of this international network that I'd be happy to help figure out who might be able to help in your particular region.
So I'll just end my part by saying Yale is an amazing source of all kinds of resources. Our students, our alumni, our faculty, our researchers, our sources of financial support, and we're here. We're here doing the Environmental Joy Conference here at Yale because these are issues that engage so much of all of our communities. So we invite you to be part of that community, and we hope that we have a chance to work together across all of our different schools and resources and centers and programs while you're here at YSC.
should we open it up for some questions and hear how we can be helpful to you?
Actually, on that point, so like creating a community, I know like a small group of us from some of the working groups, we're from all over the world. So how do we, and I know cross-sector collaboration, even among the university, is difficult. Like you were just hearing from each other. That was the first thing, I know it's not a stranger to anybody in this room, but something that we have all been talking about is like we need spaces like this that obviously it's very limited how many of us can come here or get scholarships to come here and all of that. And it seems like, Yale is this hub already for a lot of these conversations. And so we have, EJ activists and organizers from all over. Is Yale able to offer some sort of virtual space where all of you guys could be there and have more of these collaborative conversations? And it just seems like that would be the most efficient way to do it, and it seems like you guys have the capacity overall versus some of us were ad hoc, okay, should we do our own working groups, do our WhatsApp, is that something that's a potential out of the Environmental Joy convening overall or from Yale?
So there is the sponsor of this event, which is the Yale Center for Environmental Justice, and it is truly a center. There are people from public health, there are people from international approaches, there are people from the law school, students, alumni, faculty. So I think if you reach out to Michael Glopter, who helped organize this event, it's an excellent single source to connect up many of the resources at the school. That's one idea.
And I would add there's also several resources within the environmental justice community. Here in the U.S., WE ACT helps organize the Environmental Justice Leadership Forum, which is an excellent resource. And so within the movement, there are a number of resources and networks that are really valuable and we should continue to invest in. Leadership Forum, yeah. There's also folks that do policy research and others and that help convene people. Yeah, I'm gonna.
I can project.
Okay, great.
So it seems like we've been talking about a lot of outward-facing things that Yale can help with, but I'm wondering also about building justice within the institution. So how can we build Yale, especially with its massive endowment? How can we talk about and build environmental justice when we're actively invested in war, genocide, and fossil fuels?
I don't think that any of the four of us are from the president's office or from the investment side, but I will say that there is an extremely active student community of people who are pushing for exactly those changes. And it is not hard to find the leaders of that community. If you wanted to reach out to me, I can share some names of people that I know are trying to. They started with a campaign of almost moral requests, and that has started to generate into discussions back and forth more at the granular institutional offices that have rules and et cetera. So if you wanted to chat with, I'm sure there's many others. It's a huge thing going on in the community at the university right now.
I'll just add that in addition to students, there are faculty and staff who are advocating for divestment, and I think it's an active dialogue with the university, and I'd be happy to connect around some of the strategies around that.
Yeah, and I would just say in terms of other sorts of institutional accountability, one of the things that we're a new program we're starting to think about is how do we increase institutional accountability to the community that we're in as well? Yale is part of a larger ecosystem here, and New Haven hasn't always been a great neighbor. And I think that's one of the things that we all need to be thinking about is how do we use this institution to also serve the space that we're in. One of the draws for me in coming to this school was that, and to your other questions, that there is such an amazing panoply of resources here that that encompass the field of environmental justice, and so much support and investment in networking, things like the Yale Center for Environmental Justice. There's a ton of work to do institutionally, locally, in building these partnerships. But there is such a steadfast commitment to doing that that it made it a really exciting place to try to think about building the sort of program that I'm in. And just, appreciating the question.
And we have just received the high sign that it is the moment where we are now separating you from food, wine, conversation, etc. So thank you so much for coming. And if you have anything you need from any of us, we'll stay up here for a couple minutes. Thanks.